Great. Well, David, thank you very much and good morning to everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to intrude and take some of your time this morning. As David said, my name is Reagan Rodriguez. Our primary company is called Fifth Avenue Capital, and I will make sure that all of you at Paulson and Company have an updated bio with all of my updated bio. Let me start with the first question that one of you asked. I do know John Paulson very well, and I like him a great deal. And I think that his program is very interesting. And I in no way want to compete with Mr. Paulson. I think the best analogy is if you're in the market looking for a new car, and let's assume it's in the upper end, you may look at the BMW, you may look at the Mercedes, the Bentley, the Lexus, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of those cars. They all have slightly different programs if you're buying or leasing, and they may offer something a little bit different. That's the way I look at John Paulson. Again, not competing with him. We're actually attempting to do and looking at doing a transaction with him. So again, nothing but the highest regard for Mr. Paulson and now his family office. We're a little bit unique because we bring the operation and development expertise to the equation. So we will tell you, and again, this is a generalization, we generally take some sort of a role in a project. It's rare when we will just invest and not have any meaningful or equity, or I shouldn't say meaningful, because our fund is going to invest and just take for return. We do look for part of the upside, but I should point out, we play very well with our toys. And depending on the control that you or your client has on the transaction, we're respectful of that. We in no way think in certain instances where we should be controlling or majority, we may take a minor role. And we're pretty good about saying if we think that we can add value. And if we think we can add value, then we'll say that, especially if it's an industry or a market that we know well. If it's something that we don't normally play in, then we'll also tell you that, and we'll defer it to our lead sponsor developer in that regard. That kind of leads to one of the other questions that I see one of you asked here on Zoom, the type of projects. We play in the energy and in the alternative energy. We like waste to energy. We like wind farms. We like solar. Will we look at a retail center? Probably not. Will we look at an office building? No. We just think there's other guys and gals that do that better than we do. We really like mixed use projects, especially if it's construction. We like humanitarian projects. We like inventions if they involve healthcare. We generally like Africa. We know the continent of Africa very well. So we like anything and everything that ends in AF for Africa. We know India. We know Mexico and know that well. We've looked at California a lot too. We'll look at major markets, Chicago, New York. Again, part of it is if there's a story. We're looking at something in Indonesia right now, just because we like the story. I don't know Indonesia well, but the partner knows it well. We generally like Mexico, predominantly more San Miguel de Allende. I like Monterrey, Mexico. We have just started looking in the Caribbean. I like the St. Kitts, Nevis area. We're working on a project in Jamaica. So we're somewhat diverse, yet we're careful on what we select. To the point of another question, one of you asked about size. One of our close partners has a general threshold of a project needs to have a total project cost of a minimum. We'll call it 100 million. That's not to say we won't look at something smaller. As I've mentioned, I was on my way to Santa Barbara the other week, I was talking to David, and that was a $10 million check that needed to be done now. And that was because the owner got himself in some problems and we needed to step in, help him out. And then we're just going to create a structure. We're going to preserve his 5.5 million of equity, and we'll take over the approval and entitlement process. And then we may decide to develop it. It sits on the coastal zone, and it will be a private enclave of say 25 to 30, what we call mid-size to upper end homes. They will be in the $5 to $7 million range homes. So we like projects like that because it's in our backyard and we know it well. Where we'll end up on total development costs, we don't really have that dialed in. We may just go through the approval process and exit, or we may see it all the way through. And that kind of goes to another question that one of you asked. I'm seeing here, if there's an interesting project, we do have the ability to bundle it and roll it into one of our other deals. And so for bypass the $100 million threshold, are we a buyer of existing portfolio? One of you sent me an existing portfolio of 7 office buildings in the Madison, Wisconsin area. And I think they were at 98, 99% leased. And I think it was yielding 9.5 to 10% going in return. That's not us. I think that's an interesting investment, but for us, that's a little too passive. We generally, as I mentioned earlier, prefer something that is a job creator in some fashion and somehow is an economic stimulator. And that can be defined loosely. Doesn't mean that we have to be in an impoverished area or a downtrodden area. Again, in Santa Barbara, in this area, they're in the top 1% neighborhood. But again, we know that we're going to be creating jobs. We know that by creating these homes, it's going to create economic impact where you're going to have affluent people move into the area and they're going to spend their dollars. So for our rationale, that is an economic stimulator and motivator. And we enjoy being involved in projects like that. In talking about, let me group it together. I see several other questions here. The process and the requirements are really the same as, and take it from there. I think I've covered all of your points, David. I am happy to discuss anything further that any of you deem necessary. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone, and I look forward to taking a look at your projects, different transactions to help grow your business, as we've already talked about this. So I appreciate everybody allowing me to take the time today, and everyone enjoy your weekend.